Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Cube Files. I want to start a new feature. I want you to start sending me emails when you're seeing things rising in price, because, again, I think what we're going to see is a disproportionate amount of price rises in specific parts of the country, i.e., last night I did get an email from someone saying that milk was $1 a quart or $4 a gallon. It's impending financial distress that I think is being weighed into the equation, and I want to talk about tonight. Before I do, I want to read an insurance. One of my listeners and supporters is a gentleman in Phoenix who's in the insurance business, and I want to read this to you because this is something that's fascinating to me, that insurance premiums and rates are being adjusted for something that the insurance agency knows is out there. Everything, obviously, from radioactive fallout to electromagnetic pulse, but even the acts of God have been redefined by the insurance agency. I wish someone would actually blame the devil and give the devil his due, but, of course, that won't happen in this politically incorrect universe, and especially this planet in total rebellion against the living God. Let me read this to you. He said, Steve, thought you might find this interesting. Just like AIDS has been incorporated into the life and health insurance rates over the years, they've now changed the store model for property insurance. I read the article to suggest that just like the AIDS impacted rates, and AIDS was unknown 25 years ago, they are now admitting that the old thunderstorm model is not working and has been updated. Maybe I'm reading more into this, but I find this very fascinating as an insurance agent and as an observer of our changing climate. Yes, it's in Florida, but certainly they don't have the exclusive on bad weather, and I'm sure other states will adopt this as insurance companies file their rate changes in other states over the next months and years. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I received an email from someone telling me that the big underwriters of maritime policies, Lloyd's of London and others, are Munich Re, the reinsurers, the secondary market insurers, are all raising their premiums, but they've raised the war premium in the Gulf now, I believe, to 3 times its previous premium. Now that means if you are a shipper, you're going to pay 3 times the amount for the insurance you've had previous to this, and or prior to it. And I think it's kind of a telltale situation that's going to go. Can you imagine what would happen to the housing market? I just started thinking about this today, and as I pondered the precious metals markets, the manipulation going on there, and by the way, little did I guess, iterate enough or reiterate enough, volatility and manipulation now seem to be the order of the day. So those of you who are looking at silver at $6, gold at $3.85, platinum about $800, palladium about $255, $260, understand this. Nothing fundamental has changed. Only the futures market is being whipsawed around. Now, I put on my website today one of the best articles by Ted Butler. He's talking about what's gone on in the precious metals market. You see, again, too many people were starting to tell those of you who are speculating. I put those speculators in a different category than those who are buying specific specific physical metals, to demand to take delivery of your physical metals if you were buying futures and as the futures would come due. This put the people that were short the market into a tremendous position where they lost a lot of money. So they basically evened the board in the last 2 weeks and are unloading contracts right and left. There are margin calls all over the place, but I want everyone just to hold on because this is not over yet by any means. I'm going to read you an article, and this ought to make all of you who are worried about precious metals prices just understand this, that the American dollar, the Chinese yuan or renminbi, the entire Southeast Asian influence in the precious metals market, everything is still active. The only difference that has been made today is that China said they might have to raise their interest rates a little bit, and everybody thought, oh, that will mean China won't buy any more precious metals. Wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, the fascinating thing is that have you checked with anyone today to see if any other prices in the country have gone down? Absolutely. The exact opposite is what you can expect. Let me read this to you. This is from the Financial Times in London. Alan Greenspan, chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, warned on Tuesday that the dramatic rise of oil and gas futures was an economic event that can significantly affect the long-term path, don't you love this, of the U.S. economy. Wouldn't he be better advised to say the downward spiral? But let me go on. In the latest of a series of cautions from the economic policymakers, Mr. Greenspan said the rise in 6-year oil and gas futures was almost surely going to affect the growth of oil and gas consumption in the U.S. and the nature of the capital stock investments currently under contemplation. Now listen, the benchmark Brent crude futures on Tuesday hit their highest levels since the Iraq War when it reached $34.33 a barrel. U.S. gasoline futures hit a lifetime record of $1.20 a gallon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, again, I told you, at least in northern Montana, I paid $2.09 for gasoline. That's nothing. People in San Diego, some areas of San Diego and L.A., and are paying anywhere from $2.30 to $2.80 a gallon. That isn't everyone yet, but it certainly is. If the market will bear it, the prices go up. Now, listen to what Greenspan said. Addressing an energy conference by the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, the Fed chairman said the strength of crude oil prices reflected, quote, and these are in quotations, fear of long-term supply disruptions in the Middle East that have resulted in an increase in risk premiums, okay? Now, again, I want to read that one more time. You've got to hear what this is saying. This is a big tip-off, everyone. This is like the biggest telegram ever sent to the world. Fed chairman said the strength of crude oil prices reflected fears of long-term supply disruptions in the Middle East that have resulted in an increase in risk premiums. The U.S., he added, need to increase its capacity to import liquefied natural gas to reduce gas price volatility. Imports of LNG account for only 2% of the U.S. gas supply in 2003. Again, quotes, if North American natural gas markets are to function with the flexibility exhibited by oil, more extensive access to the vast world reserves of gas is required. Mr. Greenspan's comments came as the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, known as OPEC, said it was considering raising its preferred price band of $22 to $28. Purnomo Yuzigantoro, OPEC president, and the oil minister of Indonesia said the $22 to $28 range was decided in 2000. It's 2004. Some OPEC members have proposed the change, therefore we are now analyzing whether to change the range. Understand, 22 to 28 is the old range, they're talking about a new range. OPEC's future actions were put in doubt, however, by Ali Anaimi, Saudi oil minister, who said the kingdom remained committed to the cartel's current preferred range. That Vienna decision was criticized on Tuesday by Kyle McSlarrow, the deputy U.S. Energy Secretary, who met with Mr. Al-Nami in Washington. Now listen to this. People need to understand the inventory levels are tight enough that if the pipeline goes down, if there's a refinery fire or something like that, you could see significant price effects. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been 9 refinery fires in the last couple, in the last month to 6 weeks. So, listen to that. I mean, are you guys getting what I'm trying to get across in this? I'm just reading it word for word, probably being frustrated between paragraphs. But people need to understand, this is McSlarrow, okay, or McSlarrow, kind of like sparrow but with an L. People need to understand that the inventory levels are tight enough and that if a pipeline goes down, if there's a refinery fire or something like that, you could see significant price effects. Hello? The people who are refining gasoline today do not have an incentive to build a cushion because they're buying more expensive crude. Indonesia, along with Venezuela, has been a vocal supporter of a higher OPEC price band, and both countries have struggled to meet their quotas. Then it goes on to say, how do I say this? Claude Mandel, chief executive of the International Energy Agency, the energy watchdog, plans to discuss the price band issue with OPEC ministers in Paris this week. If this is confirmed, quote, it will be very detrimental to the global economy. Mr. Mandel told the Financial Times it will also ultimately be very detrimental to OPEC producers because they are looking at short-term revenue increases, but it will come at a cost of the loss of market share and as a consequence, revenue. Okay, the gist of the story is, and the gist of what we're going to talk about tonight, is just how realistic the supposed talking heads are being when they describe the U.S. economy. And ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, let me just say this. Being stoned on LSD, chasing with a mescaline cocktail, signing up for a lobotomy, and then going for shock treatment couldn't even explain some of the statements that are out there right now talking about how things are wonderful. Again, it's really important that you guys feed back to me because I know that there are listeners to this program not only in the United States but all over the world. And I propose to you that we're going to see some major price disruptions beyond anything that we have known before. Now, it's fascinating because today we've had maybe a half a dozen calls about food. And, we shipped them to Shane Connor or someone else that's in the food market because right now we are not in the food market, and I do not anticipate going back into the food market because it would be too short-lived. And also the point is that the raw materials to can with and everything are costing extremely, the costs have gone up in extreme measures on some of the stuff. Now, let me explain something about long-term storage food because people have been asking me about this. With the exception of butter powder, margarine powder, and anything that has a lot of oil to it, for instance, peanut butter powder, most storage food is good for 15 to 20 years if it's been packed with either nitrogen absorbers or nitrogen back-flushed or with oxygen absorbers. That's what I'm trying to say. So therefore, everyone, the issue that I'm trying to get across is simply this, is that we have now a situation where the pricing at not only the gas pump but at the grocery store and every other aspect of our existence is going up and up and up. I don't know how many of you go to the different stores to price men's shirts, but I mean, there's something wrong when some of the designer labels are like, $100 for a cotton shirt. Me, I like the 3 for $20 jobs or 2 for $20 Hawaiian shirts you get at Penny's. I'm still back in that mode, but I guess what I'm trying to say is think about the value and think about having, XYZ's logo on your pocket. This applies to women, it applies to men, but I can tell you point blank that I still have a hard time with ladies' fashion jeans because ladies' fashion jeans on the West Coast can cost like $150 a pair. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something crazy about that. I have a friend that is in a really, I guess you'd call it, popular boutique, and she tells me that, this person comes in, they buy this. I mean, there are, how do I say this, there are semblances of sanity, and then there are semblances of insanity. It seems like California specifically, I'm sure it's true in New York, also downtown, but I mean, this designer jean stuff, if you don't believe we're a bunch of lemmings being set for the kill, then I submit to you that we're in a different world, and we just absolutely aren't on the same page. But if you do see what's going on, then I think it's important that you start to realize that this thing is going to be out of control very soon. Now, listen to this. This is from Tim. Hi, Tim, in Kentucky. Says this. Gas prices in our area, Louisville, have risen 25 cents in the last 3 weeks. While still relatively low compared to some parts of the country, $1.69 to $1.89 per gallon, the rise over the past few weeks have been noticeable. He said, God bless you, and you are in my prayers. Thank you. He said, I read today that the U.S. Army is stretched almost to its limits and would have to make drastic moves if more soldiers were needed for Iraq. Interesting, considering how the news that re-enlistments are extraordinarily high came out so quickly after rumors of a draft began to surface last week. If they are doing so well, why are they stretched so far for troops? Any thoughts? Well, right now, Tim, I think that just for the record, we still have everybody that we have in Korea, 35,000 people. We've got everybody that we've got in the different bases in the former breakaway Soviet republics. We've got all our guys in Germany. We've got the ones in Okinawa. We've got men strung out all out over the world. And meanwhile, we've got open borders and the insanity that brings. So I can tell you this, that the double speak in the newspapers, one minute they're saying we need a draft, the next minute they say that re-enlistment is extraordinarily high. I don't believe that. And I can tell you that they will come up with something. Now, even if a nuclear detonation is allowed beyond what we know will be the Russians and the Chinese when they get ready to hammer us, the point is that at that point, can you see or at that instant in time, can you see where everyone will be scampering? They want to, defend the USA against the invaders. And I got to tell you something. We don't get it yet in this country because if we do, we wouldn't leave the borders open. You cannot tell me there is anything going on. And I just, how do I say this? It's just amazing that we have to deal with this. Again, the reality says this, is there's a limit to what a person can pay for a specific commodity before they either boycott the commodity or change their thoughts and their plans. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'll tell you this, that somebody's going to figure out that some of the older cars, and I'm talking the great older cars, even some of the old muscle cars. I can remember my days of Hemis, 427s, 396s, all the different configurations of what we would call fun cars, muscle cars. I mean, even some of those cars in those days got incredible gas mileage. I think there's going to be a real resurgence of people wanting older cars with power that get better gas mileage. And some of these things, if you start looking in some of the Hot Wheels and some of the different publications at stores, you can find some really good deals. Those of you who are mechanical, my idea of a mechanic is I open up the hood, and I know where the stuff is at, but I just basically go find someone that knows better than I do, because I found that a hammer doesn't help tune up an engine. But ladies and gentlemen, you can find some interesting older cars with plenty of power, some older four-wheelers, like four-wheel drive, and also I would encourage you, again, to look at the Rokon. A friend of mine came to visit me from south of here, and he has a Rokon, and I asked him, I said, this isn't his name, I'll call him Bill. I said, Bill, what's your thinking on the Rokon as you compare it to a four-wheeler, as you compare it to, like, let's say, a Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki? He said it's just amazing. Now, he has the one that you can put actually gasoline in the hubs. They have a bladder, and so I think you can go almost 700 or 800 miles on the gas that's in the hubs and on the in the fuel tank of a Rokon. Now, let me spell that for people. It's if you want to go on the internet and look at them, it's www.rokon, R-O-K-O-N. Okay, R-O-K-O-N. That's Romeo, Oscar, Kangaroo, Oscar, Naomi. Okay, Rokon.com. And if you'll look at that, you'll see that even the Jordanian Special Forces use them, because they have a really interesting ability to go in deep sand. They can actually go in fairly deep snow, but the bottom line is you can go up game paths and animal paths and climb like 30% grades. And I can tell you point blank, you cannot carry enough stuff on a backpack and a backpack by itself, even if you think you can live off land. If you're going to live off the land, you're going to have to take into account that the people that are going to drive you to that mode have already made sure that chronic wasting disease is in the fish and chronic wasting disease is in the elk and the deer, and they'll figure out a way to genetically kill everything. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, the point that I'm trying to make is this, is that be starting to think about newer and novel ways to travel, and you can integrate that into your survival plan. Now, again, we're going to be talking about that in the next couple of weeks, so continue to, send suggestions for what you want to have me cover. And look, I wrote a book on this called, what was it called? You got to forgive me. Blueprint for Survival, so many years ago now. And I'm going to make it all available on the web. I think what we're going to do, since I never planned to reprint that, I'll try and find the disc for it, and I got it someplace, and I'll just put up chapters on the internet if I can find the disc. If not, maybe I'll get someone that likes to type to do it. And this is not aimed at my current webmaster, who does a fabulous job, but I want to put up a place where the people, all of the different tips and everything, where you can integrate them into your planning. Because I had actually a Border Patrol guy call me today and said, Steve, I now see what's going on, help. And again, I have taken for granted that people that listen to this program know what we're talking about, and I got to tell you something, that is my fault. I apologize. We're going to go back and deal with it extensively. So again, those of you that have practical, functional tips. Now, if anybody's interested, I got to tell you a funny story. I really do practice what I preach. After we got out of the food business, I had a warehouse full of stuff, like mechanical stuff and tools and all that. So I just ran an ad. I am selling all the stuff. But what I found that maybe somebody's interested in, we have, this blew my mind. I have a 20-foot yurt. You know what a yurt is? A yurt is like a big tent, and it's held together by, good night, they're like PVC tubes, and you can go on a website, sheltersystems.com, and it's shelter-systems.com, and see what a yurt is. And we have the 20-footer and stuff, and it's brand new. It was stuck in a corner under a big tarp, and it's never been out. And these things sell for like $1,400, brand new. And I'm selling this one for for half of that, which would be $700. So if you're interested, it's white. And imagine a giant geodesic dome tent, and I mean giant. Okay, it's 11.5 feet to the top of the tent. You know how many people you can fit in one of those things? And anyway, it's some people call them yurts. Actually, it's a geodesic dome tent, and the thing is amazing. It's got a floor and everything. So anyway, I just throw that out. If any of you are interested, you can call me at 406-586-4840. But the nice thing about these things is they can be put up in less than an hour, and I got news for you with what's coming down, and they're designed to withstand incredible winds. I don't know if you know this, but a pressure on a sphere, when you put pressure on a sphere, the sphere becomes fantastically hardened. It's why when you look at the different deep submersibles, so many of them have almost a glass dome or a plexiglass dome, because the pressure is transferred equally over the surface of the sphere. Same thing with high winds. When they were doing the Manhattan Project, and after the Manhattan Project, development of the atomic bomb, they would check different shapes for being exposed to the blast and the overpressure of atomic bombs, and anything spherical, and in some cases almost a wedge-like, fared so well, while anything with square walls took the brunt of it and were blown over. So if you want to know a great thing to be starting to look at, is there are people that are going to recognize that with the wind and the waves roaring and all this other stuff, you want to have something that can withstand really high winds. We had a dome structure in our parking lot. Those of you who came to my building saw it when we were in the food business, and it was called a sprung, S-P-R-U-N-G building. And it's what Donald Trump and others, Donald Trump's built casinos out of them. The military uses them for helicopters. They can go up in 1 week, you guys. And the neat thing about them is that they can withstand, listen to me, they can withstand winds in excess of 200 miles an hour. They're fascinating. They're like a giant dome tent. Ours happen to be 30 feet to the top. But the point being is that there are other ways to live and to live, how should I say this? we're all going to have to adopt different ways of living than the four walls, the power bill, the telephone bill, and all those other bills, because it's just going to be, how should I say this? In my opinion, now, and I'll say it, it's going to be harder and harder to live in a normal, quote, or even a historic mode as the times get more difficult. So, again, I want you to know that adaptability and flexibility will, it's better to bend with the winds of change than to break. I think it's important. And ladies and gentlemen, again, we're being herded and we're being controlled beyond anything we ever know. Now, I want to give you something that you should be aware of, and this is a commentary, and thank you to the person that sent this to me. It's called Logan's Run 2004. Mandatory subdermal, that means in the skin, tracking systems to be implanted in New York, San Francisco, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C.'s homeless populations. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to be incredibly arcane and incredibly sinister with this, because this is where I believe it's coming from. What group of people are the ones that most people avoid, that they glance at or usually get a glimpse of, but if they disappeared, people would just say, gee, I wonder what happened to them? The homeless, okay? There is something going on with the story, and I will have it up on my website, later on today. Maybe I'll just go ahead and email it right now. I'm emailing this to my webmaster, Holly, because it's really a strange story. Now, radio frequency ID tags are very much in the news nowadays. You know, again, for those who are thinking that all Bible prophecy has been fulfilled, like the preterists, etc., they really can't handle this issue of people all over the world being numbered and tracked, even though John wrote that on the island of Patmos a couple thousand years ago. Now, listen to this. This is a fabulous story. This is by Laura Dawn Lewis. And she says this: in the movie Logan's Run, all citizens are implanted with a tracking device which follows their movements once they're activated. On the day of each person's 30th birthday, the tracking devices go off, and any citizen who fails to participate in carousel, state-sanctioned murder, is hunted down via the implant and killed by the Sandmen, the state's killing enforcement squad. Through the radio frequency ID tags set to be tested and surgically implanted below the skin by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in the homeless population of New York, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Bethlehem, are not being used to ensure killing as those in Logan's Run. They do turn the most vulnerable people in America into cattle, tagged and monitored like animals. Mandatory, compulsory, and not a choice, the RFID tags are miniature radio transmitters the size of a matchstick inserted under the skin and enable police and government social programs to track and document